Hey everyone, Happy New Year. It's 2026 and things are already off to a wild start, but we'll touch on that later on in this video. Today I'm going to be talking about my 2026 predictions regarding interest rates, foreclosures, sales, listings, rental rates, as well as how much I think prices are going to move this year, and the one thing that I think is going to do relatively well this year. So stick around and watch this video and you'll find out what that is. And 2026 is going to be somewhat of a similar year to 2025 in terms of interest rates. We're going to see probably the same interest rates varying very slightly. Not any massive rate drops like we saw in 2025, but rather something that's a little bit more stable, a little bit more certain when it comes to interest rates. Foreclosures, I think we are yet to see the bulk of the foreclosures that will stem from how bad the economy has gotten here, right? People have lost their jobs. There's definitely been businesses that are going out of business. And I think if you look back to 2008, possibly the worst year in the recent history, you didn't see the bulk of foreclosures coming out until 2011 to 2015. So we essentially still have some time until the foreclosures that are projected to come out actually come to the market, because it takes 12 to 24 months for that even to happen. So if there's ever a time where you should learn about how foreclosures work, you can look at one of my videos that I've made in the past about how foreclosures work, or click again one of the links in the description. There should be something about that. There will be also more sales in 2026, which is kind of hard to believe, but if you look back at 2025, we were hitting all-time lows in terms of sales. If you look back 10 years, 20 years, we sold more in 2028 than last year, 2025, which is crazy because, again, 2028, worst year. Halfway through the year, huge market crash and people weren't doing anything. And so if you look at that and compare it to 2025, we actually did less sales in that whole year. So it puts in perspective how bad 2025 is. Moving forward, 2026, is it going to be a substantial amount of sales? Probably not. I could see there being 100 to 200 more sales in 2026 than we had in 2025. So when I say there's more sales, I also don't mean that home prices are going to go up, right? I don't mean that demand is going to go up. Actually, there's a lot more happening that'll potentially push demand even further down. This year, I think the investor is probably going to take a back seat and just watch the market, analyze what's happening. Investors are really on the fence about buying in BC in general, let alone Canada, right? A lot of investors went to Alberta and now they're considering leaving the country because of what's going on over here. So investors will probably not be a huge force when it comes to demand in BC and in the lower mainland. So it'll just be end users, people who are buying, upsizing, and that's where I think the demand is going to come from, is first-time buyers, upsizers, downsizers. So nobody's going out there and buying 3 pre-sales, and because of that, I think there will be more pre-sale sales, but there'll also be less pre-sale projects because, you know, a lot of these developers that couldn't sell, they're not continuing to develop anything for now. Anything they're building is for rental purposes, and rental rates will continue to come down because of the fact that, one, there's so many rentals available right now. There's less temporary residents coming to Canada, less students, less seasonal workers coming, and there's more rentals coming to the market, right? My advice to you, if you're watching this, as a landlord, don't be a dick, don't be greedy, don't try to increase your tenant's rent this year because it's going to bite you in the butt. Think about this. Somebody's here renting something from you, and around them, they can see the exact same home they're living in for cheaper, or they can see something larger than what they're living in for the same price. Do you think that they might not consider doing one of those two moves before paying more where they're currently at, right? I think the only thing keeping them where they're at is the inconvenience of moving. So if you go and push them with a rent increase, they're going to say, screw you and go find something else, because there is an abundance of options right now and they're negotiating rent. So you're going to risk getting an extra $200, $100 for the year just to pay out of pocket a month's rent trying to find somebody new, right? And you're gonna have to give that new person a bigger discount too. So you're gonna have to pay, you're gonna get less from your tenant if you get a new tenant. So just do whatever you can. Tenants have the leverage. So my price prediction for 2026 is going to be, I think we're gonna see a 3 to 5% drop in prices this year, depending on the city, property type, of course, but last year we saw a 5 to 10% drop, and this year I think the bulk of price corrections is done, but this year it will be just the amount of inventory on the market and rental rates coming down that will essentially push home prices lower this year. What I think is going to be the one property type that will outperform previous years is going to be the amount of sales in the luxury and acreage space. So what I noticed in 2025 is that you would still see a limited amount of listings, good listings in the acreage space. And so that made them that much more sought after. And so people were still willing to pay more for those. So I think there will be more of those this year. And the reason for that is because, you know, that space is becoming more affordable for that level of buyer. You know what I mean? Like that level of buyer in this economy hasn't done terribly. So they've stockpiled cash, and so now they're in the position where they can jump up or buy something like that, or, you know, downsize to something like that. So people who are moving from Vancouver will probably be doing something like that in the Fraser Valley. People who are living in luxury homes where it's just, you know, a really nice house, I've seen a lot of them trying to shift gears and move into acreages now. So I think that'll be the category which will surprise us in 2026. So if you're thinking about selling something like this or buying something like this, keep it in mind. Don't be too picky when you're buying, because there's obviously not much of it around. And when you're selling, just make sure you're priced right, and you're gonna definitely attract a buyer for it. So that's it for my prediction video. I look forward to being able to see how it goes in 2027. And I hope you guys have a great year, and best of luck. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.
YBH.